make sure you like, subscribe, and please share. I know there's definitely some people who watch this who are not subscribed, so please help it out, help a brother out, and subscribe. Let's jump into this fun topic of the best form of barbell squat. Honestly, if you're squatting, you're winning already, because squatting is such an essential exercise that every individual needs within their arsenal for improving just overall physical health. I know I've talked about squatting in multiple different other videos. We're going to specifically talk about the barbell squat movements, or variations, I should say. With this, I'm just going to kind of jump right into it. Mainly because I don't have as long of a drive at the moment, but also because I think I've hammered home the concept of doing a squat. And if you haven't seen any of those videos, be sure to check out the essential movements that you need for lifting. With this video, let's jump into each individual version, at least some of the main versions of barbell squats, and their benefit, which ones would be better for certain individuals, and potentially is there one that just beats all of them. So let's start with what everyone thinks of a barbell back squat, which is the high bar back squat. What does that even mean? That just means where the bar placement on your back is higher up than what would be called a low bar. So high bar back squat is the bar is going to be placed pretty much across your upper traps and the tops of your shoulders. With this placement, the moment arm, or what we want to kind of break down, is where the bar, if you drew a line straight through the bar down to the floor, through the body, as the person goes through the squat, where the moment arm is placed would be more aggressively on the knee joint, meaning the knee travels more forward, further away from the midline where the bar is on the body. Of course, bar path, a lot of people hammer that this is such an important thing. I think there's a little bit more nuance than what some fitness influencers want to admit. Ideally, what they'll claim is that you should have a straight line up and down from the middle of the foot up, but that is going to be different based on individual variances of anatomy and squat form. There's not one size fits all for a squat form. It's honestly a variation of what we see in those little videos. I remember going through my personal training certification through NASM, and not to discredit them, I totally understand why they stuck to very basic things like that, but the way they talked about the squat was this perfect ideal world, so to speak, where the feet are straight and the knees are aligned with the feet, and the knees wind up being over the toes, not past the toes, and you get all the way down to that 90 degrees and come back up, and it just looks all so perfect because the upright torso and everything. But the reality is that there is no one size fits all squat, because not everybody's femur is the same length, or your upper leg. Not everybody's lower leg or tib and fib are the same lengths. Not everybody's feet are the same, and not everybody's torso is the same. So there's going to be some individual variances. I say all that to preface where I'm going to go into this variations of a bar squat. So the high bar squat being where, like I said, the bar placement Typically, yes, you will see more knee traveling forward because it is a more knee dominant squat variation. The knees are going to travel relatively close to the toes, if not past the toes, and is going to create a more upright torso position. You're still going to have a slight lean, and it's going to be a little bit more depending on your torso anatomical lengths, of course. But the upper body is going to be a little bit more upright position because you're pretty much sinking straight down. You're thinking like when you first initially, of course, unrack the bar and all that. Once you're ready to go squat, you're going to break at the knees first, or in other words, the knees bend first, followed by, of course, the ankles, and then there's very little hip hinging in it, very, very minimal, because the goal is to stay pretty upright, sink your butt straight down, pretty much to fit right in between your legs or your feet. As you're squatting and coming back up with the bar, you're trying to, of course, drive it straight up into the ceiling, so to speak. Typically, your head position is going to be a little bit more neutral to potentially looking slightly up. I do remember in high school, a coach always talking about when you squat, you got to look at where the ceiling meets the wall. And that cue works for some, but not all people who perform a high bar squat, especially if we get into the other variations here in a moment. With the high bar squat, if you want to make sure that you're hitting the mark, so to speak, you want to drive through the floor as you're standing up, like your leg pressing the floor away. You're going to anchor those feet into the floor, so to speak, like you're rooting yourself. And as you're going down, like I said, you're just going to try and sit straight down into the middle of your feet, so to speak. The high bar squat is really useful for the very deep squat, ass to grass squat variation. Really well for full range of motion. If you're looking to optimize hypertrophy or muscle building for the quadriceps and for honestly the glutes themselves as well, because they have shown that glute development happens really well in the deep squat. What am I saying? If you're someone who anatomically, mobility-wise, can sink deep into this squat, stop stopping at parallel. Parallel is not going to get your butt as much as you think it is. Well, I feel it in my butt because I squeeze at the top. That's glute contraction. We want to build by getting as deep of a stretch as possible. Or think of it in other words, I'm tearing the muscle fibers so that they can rebuild even stronger and bigger. So if you want to build your butt and you want to build your quads, sink as deep as you can. That's going to look different, again, based on anatomical, and we'll talk about whether or not you probably should change what type of squat you do. I do think that every individual should, who is able to get to using the barbell, should at some point try to do a high bar back squat. Irregardless, let's say I have a powerlifting competitor, she does low bar squat. There are occasions where I'll program high bar squat specifically to improve, as said, the quads, and to just give a different variation so that you can again promote a new stimulus for strength and growth. With the high bar squat, it is also very commonly seen within Olympic lifting, because again they're promoting that same deep position they'll have to do within the clean and jerk and the snatch position. with the high bar squat, rep ranges honestly can vary. Typically, ideally, it does really well with reps 15 and below. Yes, I know, Tom Platz and everybody's going to talk about how you can do this high repetition thing, but ideally this exercise is going to promote much better with a 15 and less repetition range. So if you are someone, if you're thinking anatomically, what is the best for high bar squat? Well, typically it's also going to follow suit with those who tend to find themselves doing Olympic lifts, but it's going to be someone who has a shorter leg, so to speak, or that shorter femur, because again, you don't have to worry about sitting back as much. Potentially someone who has shorter legs again versus torso range is going to be that individual who does really well with, like I said, a high bar back squat. Low bar back squat, create a little bit more of that shelf, a little bit more hip dominant movement. The hypertrophy's sake, one could argue that high bar back squat would be better. Potentially feel a bit more low back involvement in this, or a hinged position, or